Okay, folks, welcome to Open Source Tonight, the live feed. Let's make sure it loads. Come on. Yes, computers, everybody. It did a thing. All right. We're on the clock recording now. No time like the present. Okay. So, let me start the open. Folks, welcome to episode 22. Wait, 21. It's 21. Folks, welcome to episode 21 of Open Source Tonight. Today I'm here with my co-host, Joe Collins. And he's not going to say hi. I turned his mic on. He's just going to wave at the camera. Hey, waving at the camera is an option. It is a video show.
The little light didn't come on. I thought I was mute.
Oh, the little light. I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but all right.
Never mind. It's on now.
Never mind. All right. Today we're going to be talking about the cloud, the big buzzword, and virtual machines. So, yeah. You know, as far as I'm concerned, virtual machines are a good idea. They're virtual and they're machines. I mean, what else can you say? Why would you not want a machine that's virtual? You know, you can beat the crap out of it when it doesn't work and then you just start over.
Maybe you should back up the truck and explain what a virtual machine is, Vince.
That's a great plan. It's a lot better than my original one of they'll figure it out.
Well, I'm sure that most people in the audience actually probably know what one is, but it would probably be a good idea to explain.
For the people that don't know, yeah.
For them people that don't know.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
And yeah, I'd say it probably would be a good idea for people that don't know. Hold on just a second. I'm going to just press a button here. But yeah, what a virtual machine is. There we go. I was fixing Joe's audio. What a virtual machine is, for those out there that don't know, is it's basically a way of abstracting the computer into a virtualization environment. So you can have your OS, say Linux, Windows, Mac, in a container of sorts, if you will. This isn't necessarily the exact terminology.
Stop.
But
what a virtual machine is running an entire computer as an application. If you can imagine taking, like you're running Windows, let's say, and you click a button, or click on something, and then a little box comes up, and inside that box you have Linux running, or Mac, or in BOS, or even DOS or something like that. And that's exactly what it is. You have a hypervisor, which is a piece of software that emulates hardware, and it will run any operating system that you put in it. And as far as that operating system is concerned, it is its own computer. It doesn't know unless you tell it that it's running on a host, maybe along with a bunch of other virtual machines. So that's what Vince was trying to say there in a roundabout way.
yeah, I mean, that's why he's the teacher, right? And I'm just some guy that says words. You're better at explaining things. But yes, in basic English, yes, that's what you get, right? You have a computer program that basically is holding another operating system inside of it. And they're very great for development and testing. I love them because you can test something that might break something. And if it does, you can just roll back to a snapshot you took before you broke it. And in 30 seconds, you can be back to your Ubuntu server, whatever it is you're trying to test something on, without even having to reinstall, configure everything back to that point. It's, it's efficient.
Do you remember the first time that you saw a virtual machine? Because I do.
That's a good question. I'm trying to remember. It's been over a decade for sure.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say for me, it was probably a YouTube video where somebody was talking about, oh, you can run a virtual machine and install stuff. Because when I was a kid, I looked into a lot of computer stuff on YouTube all the time. And so odds are that's where it was. But I don't remember for sure. I do remember when I found out about them, oh, this is so cool. Like, how does that even work? So, I was very impressed. I just didn't necessarily know what I was, impressed by completely.
I had a friend of mine who worked for VMware, and they gave me a license to be able to download the full VMware workstation. And nice. I installed Windows XP on a Windows 7 machine. and I was able to boot up Windows XP on this Windows 7 machine. And I remember watching Windows XP boot up the splash screen and everything. And it was the wildest thing that I ever saw in my life. And I was able to network the two computers, and it was crazy, yo. I remember thinking, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. So right after I did that, the very next virtual machine that I built was Ubuntu.
Very next one. There you go.
Very next one. Because the reason why I had asked about it is I actually had some software that only worked right on Windows XP at that time. This was before they had put in one of the service packs of Windows 7 that they backported some stuff at one point in time. Anyway, so I put this thing on here so I could run whatever. I don't remember what it was now, but I wanted to run it on Windows XP, and I could. And so therefore, and then the very next thing I did was this little bell went off in my head. It was like, I can run Linux in this. And so I went and grabbed Ubuntu and Linux Mint and Fedora and about 3 other distributions and kind of went crazy there for a while. Didn't you? Oh, yeah. Went hog wild. I went nuts, dude. Had to get my drink.
There you go. I'm going to have to start doing that. I never think to bring a drink for these conversations up here, but I need to do that to my office. So when I'm recording, I can.
I really shouldn't be drinking soda.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a good idea to drink soda while you're on the air because it makes you burp. But I don't know. It's just it's what I wanted.
Yep. I mean, yeah. I understand what you're saying. You want to drink what you want to drink. I personally like soda. So, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, as far as like VMs go, I think once you see it for the first time, it's always everybody I've talked to about it. It's just interesting, right? To think, oh, it's so interesting that we can just basically put a computer inside of a computer, because it's not something you really, I guess, think is possible. But why not? I mean, the OS is looking at a UEFI or a BIOS that's abstracting away the hardware. Why couldn't you do that in software? Instead of a chip with that software on a motherboard or something? I don't see why, and obviously smarter people than me have figured out, yeah, you actually can do that. And there's tools like VirtualBox if you want to download something that's free.
All it is just presenting the operating system with hardware that it recognizes. So with a virtual machine, you can, emulate a video card, you emulate a sound card, you emulate everything that the operating system is ordinarily interacting with in such a way that it doesn't know the difference. I mean, it thinks a virtual file, which is what your virtual machine's hard drive in. It's thinking that that's a hard drive. So it's pretty cool, which also means that it's not just testing software and operating systems. You can also test different layouts of different kinds of setups to see how it will react to it, your software and whatever else. So it goes both ways. Most of the time, if you were talking about VirtualBox, which is free, you can go get it and download it and start using it. The hardware that's in there is kind of the lowest common denominator, but for a virtual machine, it's perfectly adequate most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And I personally like using VirtualBox because it's free and mostly open source. There's a few proprietary bits if memory serves, but it's not that bad at all. And you can get it at, virtualbox.org if memory serves for those listening.
Virtualbox.org, and it's in, they've packaged it up to install on everything. There's an open source version of it that is in the repos for pretty much everything. So if you want to run the open version, you can. And it pretty much has the same functionality. I used to run the open version all the time. I can't remember exactly what the difference is between the Oracle VirtualBox. That's still Oracle, isn't it?
I think so. What I can tell you,
I don't know. It's been a long time
since I looked at it. Part, if my memory serves, I think it's like the VirtualBox extension pack, and that is like USB 2 and 3.
Oh yeah, the extension pack. Yeah, that's. But even if you get the quote unquote free version, you can add that to it if you want to.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like an add-on. So from what I understand, like the base thing itself is open. And that's actually, speaking of that, one of the reasons I like to run VirtualBox, just a sideline here for a minute, is the fact that it's easy to go on, say, Ubuntu and do sudo apt install and, VirtualBox, and off you go, right? You don't have to, go, oh, I have to go to the Oracle website and all this. But you can. They have a deb package, and they have RPMs, and, they basically anything you want. I mean, they've got Source. You could compile it if you if you got a lot of time on your hands. You can compile it.
Well, now they have DKMS so that when you get an update, it fixes it in the kernel. For years, VirtualBox didn't have DKMS, so when you would install it, every time you'd get a kernel update, you'd have to go back and manually compile the kernel modules. They did that for years.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. That's how long I've been playing with it. I remember that. And you'd get a kernel update and you'd wonder why your VirtualBox wasn't working. I was like, oh, I've got to go fix that.
Oh, that's so annoying. That's after my time that they started doing DKMS, because I remember that I never had to do that.
I remember Linux before DKMS. I do remember, and that was like DKMS was, because if you put a video driver on there or a lot of stuff, you'd get a kernel upgrade and it would break the system. That's why you still have these old neckbeard Linux guys who are, afraid of kernel upgrades. Whereas I don't care at all anymore. I just upgrade everything and just let it go, because we don't have those kind of problems anymore. But years ago, it used to be a nightmare. And finally, somebody came along and said, there's a way we can fix this. Let's fix this.
Yeah, definitely. And I can definitely say for me, it's kernel updates. I get a little nervous every once in a while, just running updates in general, because you could have something that breaks. But I find with Linux, as you have, if you're on something that's designed for stability like Ubuntu's LTSs or something, it doesn't really break very often. So, at the end of the day, no software's perfect, but it's not bad. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
I've had it happen once, and that was when they were many years ago when we were, virtual machines used to be faster than they are now, but then they had to patch a whole bunch of vulnerabilities in Intel chips. And when all of that was going on, they sent down some upgrades at that point in time that did break stuff. I remember that. Now, they fixed it really, really fast. It was like 2 days later, but that was the one time that I remember stuff getting broken was, I can't remember exactly what the exploit was.
Was it Heartbleed, maybe?
And man, they were freaking out. They were freaking out.
Not Heartbeat. It was the CPU. It was like the CPU would predict what the code was going to do next. I can't remember what it's called. Yep. But yeah, that's... Yep. And I remember when that happened, talking about stability, I had the same problem where I was running Intel and AMD at the time, if memory serves. I know I was running Intel. I think I had this AMD system we're doing the show on as well. It was either shortly after those patches I got it or before. I can't remember which. But anyway, I know on Intel I had some systems that when I pushed that patch down, I took it immediately, and it did break some stuff. I had to go down one kernel revision. But that's something you can do on something like Ubuntu. They don't remove the kernels instantly, so you can go back in time.
No, you can always roll back and hold.
Exactly. And that's what I did, is I just rolled back and we waited, and I think it was like the next day or something, and they pushed the update down and fixed it, patched it again, no problems. So that's the nice thing about Linux. They don't mess around.
No, they're pretty quick. It's like I tell people, like we were just talking in the last show about security. Really, if you want to keep your system safe, run your updates, and don't be afraid of updates. Do it. That's the best way to go. And since then, and I don't know how many years ago that's been now. It's been a long time ago. I don't think I've had anything break on a system. Well, knock on wood,
Famous words.
I've had nothing break on a system in like maybe 3-4 years.
Yeah, I think it's been about the same amount of time.
That I haven't broken myself.
Now, yeah, of course you're going to break stuff yourself. I've done that. Oh, you edit the config file and you put a semicolon in the wrong place and then it won't boot.
And then, you sit there and go, why doesn't this work now? Oh, you dummy. That's why. You did that.
Yep.
You should have left it alone.
Yep, user error, everybody. Getting us back to virtual machines, though, I have a question for you that relates to this and updates. So when you have a virtual machine, I have a bunch of them of different things. Now, I know you said you don't run them like you used to, but when you did you apply your updates constantly in the VMs as well? Or did you kind of say, well, it's a VM, so that you weren't as concerned about security inside of them?
I actually used to like when updates would come out, I would open all the VMs at once and having the updaters all run at the same time, so I could watch it. I got to be a little OCD about that, and it was, I'd do them all at once. And then I actually wrote a program that would do them headless and do it one after the other. And finally, I just, like I said, I don't fool around with them much anymore. But when I did, I used to maintain 4 or 5, and you'd come and see my computer screen, and I would have, 4 little boxes on there with little bitty Ubuntus and Linux Mints and Manjaros and stuff, and they'd all be updating at the same time.
That's a sight to see. I have updated a couple of VMs and computers in general at the same time. For a long time, I used to do something you said you used to do in your videos, where you would use Terminator, and you could go at SSHN, where you paste the same text into each terminal. And I had the same password and username on all the machines in the house. And I'd be like, okay, SSH Vincent Maggard at 192.168. Whatever, at all the different machines. And as soon as I got the password prompt, I'd let it, type the password in at once, sudo apt update and all that, because they're all Ubuntu, right? All the same version, or most they were only one revision behind one another. So it's like, it was nice to just be able to update them real quick and sit there and watch. It kind of made me feel like I was in NASA mission control or something. And I'm like, I'm making sure everything is safe on the International Space Station today.
Well, I actually did that this morning. I sat down and I went around the house and nobody was here but me, and I turned on all the machines. And then I sat here and updated the machines and had the terminals running. I don't use Terminator anymore, but I like 3 or 4 terminals on the screen, and they're all updating all of ththese machines on the network at the same time. There is something very cool about that has been fascinating to me for years. That's why I like to do all of my updates manually. I never let the auto updater work. Nothing. I always want to see it and watch it and watch the little thing go up and go by. I want all the details. It's a Linux nerd thing,
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I do the same thing. I want to know, I disable the automatic updates. And then what I'll do is I'll, again, go like you were talking about in SSHN, or look at them locally and do the updates by hand. And I do it pretty much once or twice a week at least. And depending on the week, I may do it, 3 or 4 times. If I think, there might be an update, or if I see a video about, there's supposed to be a new patch to this thing, I'll go, check more frequently. But yeah, it's one of these things. And another thing too is I want to run updates manually, because then I know on that extremely rare chance something does break, I know, okay, it was working fine. I just applied a patch 10 minutes ago, and now it won't boot. Okay, we're going to have to go down a kernel revision or something and, dig into what was going on. And, so that's an important thing to think about, especially considering there's a lot of people. And Joe, I feel like you're probably the same way. You're kind of tech support for your friends and family and such, right? Where you're the Linux guy. And so everybody that runs Linux that knows you, they go to you for and they do the same thing with me. So just today, one of my mom's friends is like, hey, my Linux machine, can you check it out for me? I want to make sure everything's updated, because I haven't checked it in a while. And if I want to say I set up her system to auto-update, but I'm going to log in and remotely check it for her probably tomorrow or something, whenever she's got time for me to look at it.
I got to go. I'm trying to get over to my mom's house to swap out the hard drive in her machine and reload the operating system and restore it. And I've been trying to get over there for about 2 weeks, but I've been so busy I can't. So yeah, I'm the guy,
Yeah, and I think
everybody's only Linux. Only Linux. If people have Macs or Windows, I just look at them and go and shake my head and say, I don't fool around with that. You have fun with that.
Yeah. I will support Windows and Mac systems a little bit, but Linux is where I'm at. And if I have a opportunity to, try and get somebody to move over to the Linux side of things, especially if it makes sense. If they don't have any Windows software, and most people I'm supporting, all they want to do is browse the web. Like, y'all can use the, Firefox or Chrome on an Ubuntu box, and that's all you need, or a Chromebook. You don't need Windows or Mac OS and all the extra complexity of those systems, And so for those people in particular, it's like, yeah, we should really get you over,
We just started this thing at work where we are working on putting desktops in the cloud, and where it's now, instead of an employee getting a computer, you'll get the idea is that you get a Chromebook, and on the Chromebook you can put the client that allows that person to log into their Windows machine. But the Windows machine is actually running in a VM in the cloud, which is managed by, the us.
Yeah,
And
by the company.
By the company, yeah. So well, there's a couple of advantages to that, and one of them is that we can control the updates. We back everything up. We back up the whole machine. So a person can't drop their computer out the window and break it, or the computer crashes or something and then they lose all of their contacts or whatever because it's sitting up there. It really doesn't matter the physical device that we're on. I was just having a talk with my boss about that the other day. It's like we're all going back to the model of a big computer and we have a terminal.
Yep.
And
going back to the mainframe days, right?
Yeah, like mainframe. It's all going back the other direction. But it's interesting, is like I said, when you log in, what we were fooling around with was when you log in, you get a whole Windows desktop. I mean, it's a little stripped down, but it is Windows 10 Pro with everything exactly where you think it ought to be. It's like, okay. And it ran pretty fast through my connection, and I don't have the world's greatest internet connection. So I don't know how far we're going to go with that, but because there are certain things, because it's a radio station, we simply cannot do that way. You have to have, like all the on-air people, if you want to do any recording or tracking at home to record parts of your show or whatever, you can't do that virtually. You've got to have a machine with the software on it local. But still, it's very intriguing. It's the first time that I'd ever really gotten into that. My website is hosted in the cloud. It's a virtual machine running in Dallas, and my connection to it is SSH. Now, I can go to their website and then go to the console, like if I want to shut it down or something like that. I think I've logged in there 3 times in the last, let's see, the website went up in 2017 on that host. So, yeah, how many years has that been? We're getting to 6 years now. And I have actually logged into the console like 2 or 3 times. And the times that I have done that is because I was working on the machine and I shut it down by accident. And the only way to get it back was to go log in and then get on the console and restart the machine.
Yeah. I've been there, done that, where you have to restart the system. Because of something and it doesn't reboot or whatever. But yeah, for my systems in the cloud, it's pretty rare that I've had to reboot.
I've never had a problem. On that machine, I run CentOS 6, which is still supported until like 2024, so I'm not worried about it. And I do whole updates, kernel upgrades, everything on that box, and it always boots right back up. And when I go to log back in, it's there. It's amazing. It's just, and that's just the power of Linux. It's just,
and the power of SSH for management, might I add, because you can.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm a testament. Somebody that used to have really bad internet. Now it's still, not state of the art. Like you could definitely get faster internet than what I've got still, but it's pretty decent. But I can tell you right now, if I had to pick between a TeamViewer or a log me in or whatever kind of session, or a session that would be SSH. SSH so much snappier, even on a fast connection in my experience. Because, think about it. You're only really dealing with sending text back and forth, right? You're sending the commands. It's not the user, the mouse is over here and I got to draw it.
None of that stuff, yeah. None of it. It's super fast. It's easy to do.
And, that's the nice thing about the cloud environment, I think, that a lot of people forget about is you can simplify things for the non-technical users. Okay, you just log in and you've got a system that works. And talking about management level stuff, one thing that I've thought about before is, as somebody that one day may actually have employees, is how would I remote manage stuff? And one of the things I've really looked at is I want to do everything I can in the cloud as far as like web servers and all these things, have people log into stuff, and that way their computers are, again, kind of like the old days of But the word escapes me. Those big computers we just talked about, those
Mainframe.
things, the mainframes. Yeah, kind of going back to that, where it's like we have this one, computer or a couple VMs or whatever in the data center environment, and you'll log in to do your tickets or whatever it is that you need to do, your email, and your computer is basically just a glorified thin client.
Just a dumb terminal. It's all it is.
It's a dumb terminal, and
I have known people. You can do that with Linux. It's actually easy to set up. There was a guy. He's on YouTube who worked for a company that, for some reason or other, they set up Red Hat on one machine, okay? And then they had 10 employees in the company or something like that. And everybody had a laptop. It was like an old junk laptop with no hard drive in it. And it would pixie boot on the network. And once it pixie booted, it logged into that machine, and that's where everybody's home directory was in this server. So it was the one computer, and the laptops that people had on their desk had been converted into dumb terminals. They were not even capable of booting on their own because they were pixie booting off the network. And they
didn't even have a drive of an OS at all. So
there was no drive in it. So there was, first of all, that way they didn't have to maintain the laptop. And if it died, they would go down to the junk store and get another one.
Toss Ubuntu or Red Hat on it.
Other than the keyboard and the screen.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And, talking about the way that Linux is designed between having SSH and then also X, X was designed, for those that don't know, talking a little bit about the data center environment, to be able to, it's a network protocol, right? So I could have an X server over here, across the property here, let's say, and then I can have a computer up here that's, again, a dumb terminal, right? It's not really doing much. It's just talking to X and being able to give me a graphical interface. And as I move the mouse, it is going to tell that computer, okay, Vincent, move the mouse to coordinate here, X and Y. Oh, now he clicked this button on the mouse. Okay. Oh, he was over a button. So, send this back, whatever. All these different things. So, that's the nice thing about Linux is, to me, it is really more optimized, and I feel this has been this case for many years now for the cloud environment than Windows or Mac. Because, I mean, yes, you can run both in the data center environment, but let's be realistic. Linux has been number one in the data center environment for a couple decades now. I
think one of the reasons is not only is it was designed for that environment to begin with, because it's a Unix work-alike, and Unix was definitely designed to be run on a big machine with lots of terminals. And so therefore, if we're going to go back to that model, and you have to limit people's access and everything, you can give them an X2Go desktop. And they can run that through a hard network with no problem whatsoever. They're never, as far as they're concerned, they're not going to know. To Linux, it doesn't matter where your data lives. It doesn't make any difference. It could either be on your local hard drive, or it could be going through 100 miles of network cable. Doesn't care at all where it comes from. And even on my simple little setup at home between the machines, I use X forwarding. And, like if I want to check the health of a hard drive on another machine, I type in GNOME disks, and that application pops up on my screen, but it's running on the other machine, but I'm seeing it here. Okay. And that's just one machine to another. Well, it don't matter. You can do that over the internet. You can do that in a data center, anywhere. The possibilities actually start to break your brain after a while. You think, it's so powerful. There's so much you can do with it.
Yeah, it's really, in a way, really unlimitless. As long as you have the technical know-how and the idea, you can probably implement it. And, talking about X2Go, by the way, I have used that before. And I got to tell you, X2Go, it's pretty decent. It isn't perfect. I'll tell you this. If you're in media, which me and Joe both deal with a lot of media, well, I can tell you right now, that's the thing to me where X forwarding and X2Go starts to fail. But a lot of people, they're doing Excel spreadsheets or LibreOffice, they're doing their email, they're doing paperwork. For people like that, you don't really need, a lot of graphical power. You don't really need it. And so I think that's where something like X2Go or just X forwarding or something starts to make a lot more sense. it's funny, talking about Linux in the corporate environment for a minute here. I seen stuff years ago that talked about Linux being something that there was a custom Linux distro that the Lowe's Corporation developed. You all know in the U.S., other countries may have it too. The Lowe's Home Improvement Store. Well, it's interesting because they don't really hide the Linux level. I mean, you go and walk around their store. I've seen the employees before look stuff up on Firefox on a Linux desktop. It's very clearly Linux.
Oh yeah,
and it's a custom desktop environment. That's kind of a weird, I would say, a mix. The little tiny glimpses I've got of it, because I've only seen it for a few seconds here or there, and an employee's been trying to show me something like a product I'm trying to look at. But you can see like I've seen like there was a dock on there and a bar and like a panel. But regardless. What I'm getting to is that Linux, you can customize that, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if that they're doing pixie booting for that or something. It wouldn't surprise me. Honestly, if I was to deploy a Linux environment for employees, like a big bunch of users right now, probably what I would do at this point is I would probably either just go straight pixie boot or have a Linux system that's locked down on the drive that's purely just got like X to go or something for a lot of uses, and then it just, as soon as it opens up. Another thing to talk about too, by the way, is you can use XRDP as both a server and a receiver. You want to talk about RDP for a minute. And with RDP, you can actually, with that XRDP, it's a command line. You can put that in a .desktop file. I played with this. Set that up with the server to log into. You can use keys or a password. And then it will auto log in, so not to go full screen. You can have it so as soon as the desktop opens, they don't even have time to render a panel or anything. There it is. We're looking at Windows, or we're looking at Linux with a RDP server on it, and you're good to go, right? You can really talk about thin client, right? The users log in, auto logs in on that Linux box. They don't have privileges to do crap, and then you could have XRDP. That's probably what would make sense for a lot of use cases, right? Is something like that, either that or X2Go. Though I will have to say, and I'm going to probably get pushed back for this, but in my experience, RDP seems to be a little better than X2Go. That's been my experience, even on Linux, just RDPing into another Linux system. Especially if you're using GNOME. The latest version of GNOME has got its own RDP server built in. It's apparently not XRDP from what I understand. It's like their own thing. And it is really good. So,
I've never fooled around with that part of it. I've always I'm happy to get a terminal. If I got a terminal, I got what I need most of the time. I'm not trying to run graphic intense stuff across machines. But like you said, it depends on the environment and how you set that up. And you can have these virtual desktops just kind of floating around out there. It's awesome what you can do these days. And so we're looking at that for the radio station right now. And because we've had people lose things, people just lost their contacts and all this other kind of stuff. So this way we know where it is. And we can always roll you back. It's like, you did what? You deleted your contacts? Well, we're going to put you to yesterday.
Yeah. Just roll the backup back, one day on the box. Give us 10 minutes, Yeah, I mean, that's really good about the cloud. But to me, it all really comes back to remote management. Just the fact that you can manage everything really well. And another thing, too, we're talking about the cloud, it's disaster resilience. Because as somebody that has things that he wants to be running 24/7 on the internet successfully, and he doesn't necessarily have internet that, quite frankly, he trusts with such things, that's where putting it in a data center, in a virtual machine, if it's something that you need to log into once or twice a week and just talk to, and just say, I need you to do these things, and then you just need it to run in the background, but it needs to always be there, that's when it, to me, really makes the most sense to have a cloud instance of something. Because if somebody like DigitalOcean or Microsoft Azure is having issues, I mean, yes, it happens, but at least compared to East Kentucky's internet reliability, it's pretty reliable. So, that's
like I said, that the company that I work with for the webpage, it's never been down. Never. I've never had it go down. I think one time they sent me a thing and said, we're going to be doing maintenance and it'll be down for 2 hours. But
yep, I've got that.
That was planned. It was like 4 a.m. or something. I was like, who cares? It's been incredibly reliable and dirt cheap too.
The cloud is dirt cheap.
It's not, you don't get a whole lot, but I mean,
you don't always need a lot.
I think it's 25 gigs for the hard drive, and But I mean, I get like a terabyte of bandwidth a month, which I don't come anywhere near touching. Just on the simple plan, and it's like the whole thing is like $6 a month or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's just, come on, big deal.
Yeah, I mean,
this is cheap, dude.
Yeah, VMs are cheap. In data center environment. Like I like DigitalOcean, for example, and for I think it's $5, might be $6 now a month. You can get 25 gigs. This isn't an ad for DigitalOcean. There's a different companies like Linode that also seem to be pretty good. I haven't personally used Linode. I've used DigitalOcean. I can tell you that with DigitalOcean, I've gotten a couple issues over the years, but 90% of the time, probably at least, it's up, and maybe even more than that. And most of the time, they don't do any maintenance, but every once in a while, they'll send that notification. And here's the thing about the maintenance, is they say it's going to be down for like 30 minutes or something. Yeah, most of the time it's down for like 30 seconds of the window they claim.
It's like a minute and a half. They're done. Okay, boom, you're back up. Yeah. I was like, dude, I didn't even feel that.
Yeah, like that barely even noticed that, right?
Come on.
Yeah, if somebody visited the website and it didn't come up, they just refresh again, and by the time it refreshes, the site worked again. Wonder what that was.
Exactly. Nobody knew. It was like I always think it's funny because you're like I said, I'm working on this VM in the cloud, which runs my website, and so I'm running updates in the background. And if I get a kernel update or something, I have to restart the machine. And I always think, okay, somebody's getting ready to click on something right now, and then I type in reboot. So it's down for about 20 seconds. And it's like, right now you're getting a 404 error. Especially when I used to have a forum that ran on that thing. I used to have people chatting on it all the time. And I felt so powerful and maniacal. It was just like, watch this. I'm going to mess up everybody's chat for about 30 seconds.
Oh, goodness. To be fair, forums isn't exactly real-time chat. That's where you would really notice it, right? On a forum, it's like you just try it again.
Yeah, that was exactly what was going on, too. It was like real-time chat. Guess what?
Yeah, but I mean, you got to reboot systems, and sometimes it's just it's what happens. But again, talking about Linux in the data center environment and in the cloud, if you would prefer that term, the fact that you can even do live kernel patching if you really want to. You can really have very high uptime on a Linux system in the cloud, and combine that with the fact you've got the backup power they've got in the cloud environments. They've got multiple data connections for internet traffic, and I mean, again, when you think about how cheap it is, I mean, a terabyte of transfer DigitalOcean, 25 gigs of storage, 1 gig of RAM, or 512 megabytes of RAM, I think it is on the cheapest one. But like that's one CPU core, I believe it is. That's not that bad, especially if you just want to put like a simple thing up there. Now, I eventually plan on moving my website actually over to DigitalOcean. The problem I have is all my emails on a cPanel system that I was using years ago. And it's like I don't want to lose my email. So
yeah. Hosting email is a pain, and
I think I'm just going to go to a company, and just pay for them to do it.
I don't even do it on my website. I actually host my email somewhere else. I don't want to be in charge of dealing with email. I use another service for that.
Yeah, I think that's the way I'm going to need to go, because I find that the hosting, when you're using an email built into the cPanel, it has weird issues. Like sometimes stuff that shouldn't be marked as spam by the host, and there's nothing I can do about it, gets marked as spam. I had a business email, a very important business email come in, and it was marked as spam, and I didn't notice it for hours, And thankfully, it wasn't like you have to answer this in 10 minutes. But if it had been, oh goodness, that would have been serious, which is why.
Email email as it is just the biggest pain. Like I said, we just went through that. I was telling you before we went on the air. We just went through this at the radio station. The boss decided over the weekend that we were going to change email services, and he was going to try to be slick and do it all on the back end. That didn't work out.
Change it while everybody's asleep, and when they wake up the next morning, it'll just all be working.
Monday morning, everybody went to log into their email and went, nothing works. What the hell? It was like that. It was fun. That bit me too. I was cussing. I was,
You were not happy about that. I got to tell you, that's an easy thing to do, though, when it comes to IT stuff. I have, as I brought up before, I had for many years an Asterisk home phone system. Well, one night I thought, it's like 3 a.m. I'm going to upgrade that system to an entirely new version of Asterisk and everything, which is going to be great. When everybody wakes up, the phones are going to be working again. No one's going to call at 3 a.m. anyway. I'm like, this could be perfect. Well, let's just say that there was a reason I had to have backup systems. Everybody woke up and the phone system was still, hey, everybody, y'all can't check your voicemail this morning. You can't do a bunch of stuff. We're on basic calling because I broke stuff. So, yeah, there's a reason I don't upgrade that box, but like every few years.
It's that thing that hits you. Sometimes you get up in the middle of the night and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you think, well, I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to upgrade this. I'm going to swap that hard drive out of there and I'll have it all done way before tomorrow morning and everything will be working. And then
nobody will even know that I did this.
What you did to my computer?
Yep.
Doesn't work now.
Yep. I did that to a couple years ago. I did that to my mom's computer. It was the middle of the night. I'm like, I need to update her system real quick here. Wasn't 5 minutes after I upgraded it. She's like, can I borrow my computer here real quick? You're working. I need to check something. I'm like, right now it's setting at a terminal. We're running a bunch of updates. I can't give you back a GUI right now. Give me 30 minutes, right? Whatever. So anyway, but yeah, what can I say? I guess that's just a geek thing. We just get in the zone. We're like, we need to update this box.
Ideas,
Yeah, it's like I wake up in the middle of the night.
Try that.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to write a 1,200 line script here in the next 20 minutes before I have to do this, so I can. No.
Yep, I've done that. That's real bad.
You think you can do it, but then you go, wait a minute, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm really bad for doing. For getting up in the middle of the night. I haven't done this in a while, but I used to do this all the time. As a programmer, I come up with all these different programs. Or like I'll think of a way to solve it. I'll be like about to sleep or in the middle of my sleep and I'll be like, wait, that's how I could make that work. Oop. Type. Yep. And then I'm up for 3 hours and then somebody like my mom gets up. She's like, why are you up at like 7 a.m? You're not a morning person. I've been up for like 3 hours. Can't you see my eyes?
On this. Check this out. Ain't it cool?
This is so cool. I just thought of this great idea for a program while I was sleeping, and I had to get up right then and right. And I'll tell you, with me, if it's a screenplay idea, a script, program, script, whatever, I have to get up and write it. If I don't do it, I've done this. I'll just do it in the morning. I don't even remember. I'm like, oh man, I was going to write something this morning. What was it? So. Yeah.
I had a great idea, and now I can't remember jack. I don't know what. Oh man, it was a good one too.
It was the best idea ever. It was gonna make me a millionaire. It was.
Well, I don't aspire to those illusions of grandeur, but
Yeah. There's more important things in the world than money.
It's off the subject, but you brought it up. As I find that's the way my brain works, is that you have a problem that you're trying to solve and you go, well, I can't figure that out right now, but I'm just going to put it on the back burner and then give yourself about a day or two like that. And then you usually wake up with it. Well, I know exactly how I'm going to do that. Okay. And then you go do it,
Yeah. Actually, let's talk about this for a few minutes because you got me going on this. Our brains both are very similar in that way. It doesn't just happen to me when I'm asleep. It happens to me when I'm in the shower. It happens to me when I'm in the doctor's office with somebody like my mom I've taken over or something. It's always something where I don't have a computer in front of me and I can't write it down.
I used to get really great ideas is the grocery store.
Thank you. Yes.
I don't like grocery stores, so I usually get real nervous. In like the first 5 minutes I'm there, I'm a little freaked out. But then you get to this zone where you're calmed down and you're working your way up and down the aisles. And you get about halfway, and your brain goes to something like that, and you'll go, "Oh, wait a minute, I could do." And then you've got to hang on to that through the rest of the shopping, and you get the stuff home and you put it away, and you just hope, and you're writing things down. Have you ever done that?
Yeah.
I've done hang on to the idea.
I've done things like take a piece of paper or take a cell phone and write a little note in okay, I'm gonna write a program does this. Oh, don't forget, if I do the for loop like this, he'll do what I want. I just thought about it, So, and it always happens.
You're
more
I was saying, than I am because usually I have to have a problem. I don't dream programs. It's I don't dream like
Well,
programs like that.
I mean, it is a
I am
problem,
faced
though.
with something that must be solved.
Well, that's the thing is for me, it is a problem. It's like, well, I want to do this. And then I'm like, well, how do I do that? You know, and I have to sit and let it think about it for a day or two, whether it's a client's program or mine.
Tying this back in with the topic, this is what makes virtual machines so great, is because if you have one of these brainstorm ideas, instead of actually trying it on a system that somebody else needs to use or you need to use, you fire up one of these virtual machines.
Yep.
And you go in there and you tear it up. You make sure it works. And if it don't work, big deal, you know, roll
You
the
broke a VM.
back,
No one cares, right?
Take a snapshot and roll it back. Who cares?
Yep. And that's if I have to give anybody a word of advice, for some reason people occasionally ask me for advice. But if they do, I tell you, get you something like a Raspberry Pi, get you virtual machines, get you something that you can test stuff 1,000 times on and break it before you ever put it in production, because you will really want to, when it's in production, for it to work. And you know, that's a good thing about the cloud too. I mean, you can do a virtual machine locally, but sometimes I find it's easier just to spin some up in DigitalOcean. Like, depending on the provider, I know some of them, DigitalOcean's one of them, you pay like per minute, hour, etc. of use. So if you spin up the VM, we do the thing that took an hour, and then we kill the VM. Right afterwards, you're good to go, right? You know, you're paying like 10 cents for that or something, or whatever,
you're paying
like
10 extra cents on your bill. Yep.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, why not? And it's really handy to be able to do that. But the reality of it is that just having a VM of any kind is very helpful for, again, prototyping anything. Just because you can get everything in there and you can try stuff. Another thing too, I'll point out, is its repeatability. Right?
Yes.
Is if, let's say I have this thing, I've seen programs like this. They need a very specific kernel. They need a very specific version of this library. They need a very specific everything. And I'll tell you right now, if you need something that specific, make a VM for it and send it to the people that need it. Because I've done that before. They've done that with me, people I know. Because like, when you need this very specific environment, I could spend 2 hours trying to build that, or you could just, I already have a copy of it. Here's a copy of my VM. Drop it into VirtualBox, or you can drop it into DigitalOcean or whatever. And then before you know it, you're back in business. You got the thing working. And I remember years ago, I found out there was this piece of software that it was called Single Wire Software's Informacast. This is a really nice tool that will let you do all this advanced phone alerting. I'm a telecom nerd. Y'all picked up on it? Anyway, but the thing I thought was interesting about them, I never got to use their product because, I ain't rich. I called them once. They're like, that's really expensive. But anyway, I looked on their documentation because a lot of it's public, and I'm a nerd. I want to know how stuff works. And they're talking about how that they distributed you a virtual machine image with Linux and all the whole thing set up. So if that you licensed it, you basically threw up this VM, from what I understood, and like tossed in a key, and that was basically it. And you were done. And that's so nice that you can just, something that's complicated. There's so many programs where it's got web server like Nginx, PHP, all of this complicated stuff. It's got Python, all these, just ridiculous, some of these programs, how complicated they can get. And you don't want to have to build that environment out, right? But you don't have to, because if you got a VM, you just do that, you make a VM. Another thing, talking about disasters, is there is tools out there like Proxmox where you can have 2 Proxmox systems. I had a buddy that used to have a Proxmox in his house, and you could have 2 of those Proxmox servers and migrate a VM in real time between the systems. So if that one system, you pulled the power cable, big deal. The VM continued on the, as far as everything's concerned, the same IP, the same packets, almost everything.
Yep, nothing changes.
It's like a tiny blip. One thing I thought was pretty interesting is a couple years ago, I seen there was a company that made this hardware system, this heavy-duty virtual machine server for radio and TV stations. And it was so advanced, you could get 2 of these, and you had all this redundancy on everything, right? It was like multiple copies of everything, CPU, drives, everything. If you had anything fail, it would log an error in a console, yell at you to fix it, and then you would still be on the air. And it was to the point where if you were using like audio over IP from like Wheatstone or Axia, you could pull the plug from one of them, and you wouldn't even know on the air that one of the playout boxes died. It was that seamless. It wasn't like you hear like the drum beat again or something in a song, or instant perfect in sync. And I mean, that's just, what can I say? I'm a bit of a nerd, so to me that's just very impressive because, you know, it just sounds like something that shouldn't be possible, don't it?
The thing that got me is that we were at work. We were looking at this desktop in the cloud thing from Amazon, and the thing is that they actually have a facility where you can back up a physical machine, and they'll put it in the cloud. Put the kitty down, and they'll put it in the cloud. See, and so like if you have a worker and you want to move them to this environment, you just take their machine, run a backup, send it up to them. Boom! Now the guy logs in instead of having it on his local machine, which it's on this everything, all his contacts, Outlook, calendar, whatever, all set up. Boom, you know.
That's very impressive.
Yeah, I don't know.
You
how
know,
it works.
I didn't know that they could do
They
that.
said they could do it, and I was like, okay,
wow,
that's
yeah,
interesting.
It
And
is
by
interesting,
the way,
right?
it's like when you spin these things up, it's like one button. It's like, just choose what you want. What would you like? Would you like Red Hat? Would you like Ubuntu? Would you like Windows? We can give you Windows. You want Windows? You got that too. And you know, it was very much like that, and it was like it spun up like that.
Oh yeah, DigitalOcean's the same way, where you can go in and you can say, I want Red Hat or Ubuntu, and you just click it, and about 30 seconds later you get a VM just ready to
With
go.
a fresh Ubuntu in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Log in, desktop and all. How y'all doing? What's up?
It's very cool technology, and you know, it just comes in handy. I'll tell you another thing too. I don't know. I'm sure Amazon probably does have an API for this, but I know DigitalOcean does. They have an API where you can create a virtual machine completely automatedly, including having like a script writer after it's done, so you can have it automatically install something. And you know, one thing I was thinking about this before is I've heard of situations where you literally are building out something like a CDN. You have all these VMs. Oh, we get a lot of traffic. Oh, build another one. Build another VM and serve the same stuff off of it. And in like a 30-second time frame, you can do that? Come on. Can you imagine that?
Yep.
Can you imagine in 30 seconds being able to put a new whole actual bare metal hardware server online? That's not how it works.
They all do it. They all offer that. I know Amazon offers it, and I know Microsoft Azure has the same thing. And I know that, you know, DigitalOcean does for sure. I don't know about the company that I use because I'm so basic. I never really go and putz around with it too much. I just leave it run. But the thing is that all of these abilities are out there to do that, and you can have, you know, you can send them your own image, and then there it is. It's on the thing. It's insane.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is, we're talking about cloud stuff, and everybody that's listening to this, you really don't need a terribly big machine with lots of storage space. Most of the like 99% of your hardware, unless you are editing video or playing games, is wasted. And you have all
modern
these
hardware
resources. In particular. Huh?
Yeah, I was thinking, on modern hardware in particular, right? It's just,
it's
so
absolutely.
powerful.
I mean, you go out and you buy a machine, and I mean, today we would think 64 gigabytes of RAM is moderate. Well, I have a machine.
I don't know if I'd say that.
I have a machine with 32 gigabytes of RAM, and I never have gotten the thing to go other than running virtual machines on it. I have never gotten the thing to go over like maybe 5 gigabytes actual memory used.
You know, it's
and
funny.
I'll have like 40 browsers open and a couple of programs running in the background and music playing and whatever else. And it's all going on at the same time. And I think, boy, I must be really pushing this machine. And I go look at it, and it's like, nope, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that is I only have 16 gigs in this system and in my MacBook Air. That's the most RAM I have. And even with video editing and having a VM open in the background, I can still usually have a gig or two free, even in that environment.
Well, the
And so,
machine that I am using
like
right
that's
now, this machine has 4 gigs of RAM in it.
yeah. Now 4 gigs starts to feel very constrained for me.
Yes, but I mean, for like this sort of an application where I have one browser open and I'm doing one thing,
it's a single purpose system for you. It's an appliance.
It's working fine.
Yeah, and I mean, if it's an appliance, that makes a lot more sense. I mean, that's where I kind of use Raspberry Pis because, people say, well, the biggest one only has 8 gigs of RAM. Only. Years ago, 8 gigs of RAM would have been, that's the thing about computers that I can't seem to explain to people that aren't computer people. It's just how fast these things change. Just in my lifetime. Going from, the megabytes of RAM to gigs was a big jump, right? I mean, if you were, like 10 years ago, let's say 15 years ago, if you had 32 gigs of RAM, you were the cool kid on the block. You were like, whoa, you have 32 gigs of RAM? You must be a millionaire, because that's expensive.
I can remember when it was a big deal if you had a megabyte.
Can't remember back that far, but,
That was in the DOS days.
Yeah.
Because DOS basically used 640K, and then you could have extended memory beyond that. That was a full megabyte of RAM. And that was a big deal. Megabyte of RAM with 5 1/4 floppies. And you could play games.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, granted, the old MS-DOS games by today's gaming standards, you're not going to get 60 frames per second or more and, really amazing graphics.
It wasn't anything like that, but
they still was fun.
That was a big deal.
They still was fun. I like retro gaming, so I wasn't around in the DOS era, but I can play with the games now. You got DOS box, you got free DOS you can put in a VM, or even just run it on hardware sometimes. And
I think that's also a fun thing that you can do with a VM is that you can set up a VM, and actually, I know for a fact for VirtualBox that you can go online, and if you look for it, you can download a Windows 3.11 VM.
There's a lot of pre-built images for stuff on VirtualBox. One time a while back, I wanted to play with a really, really old version of Red Hat / CentOS. I really wanted to play with it. I seen somebody else using. I mean, it was like long gone supported, but I wanted to play with it. I just wanted to toy. I liked the old theming they were using and stuff. I wanted to play around with it and see what else was in there. Well, I could never get it to install in VirtualBox for some reason. I couldn't figure out why. You try to download the ISO, would not work. But I looked online and sure enough, somebody's like, here's a VM I created that's clean with the default password of this and the default username of this. Go download it and install. Put it in the VirtualBox after about 10 minutes, and I was sitting on the desktop, and I changed the username and password to what I wanted, and that was it. I was able to go to town pretty fast. So that's the nice thing again about virtual machines. It's easy.
I remember a few years ago, I posted a video to YouTube. I don't know whether it's still up, where I was going through a box of stuff, and I found a CD, a burnt CD with Ubuntu. I was either Ubuntu 7 or Ubuntu 9. I think it was 7. And so I made a video where I put that CD in and booted it up on a virtual machine. And that way you could see it run and everything. And of course, it was very limited what you could do with it. But I think I installed it and everything. I went through the install procedure and got it up and running. And you couldn't update anything, but it was, you could look and see what Ubuntu looked like when it was that little, and when it was all them years ago. And it was actually, in some ways, I thought it was slicker than what we have now. I mean, it was just it was pretty cool. You wouldn't like try and put that on a piece of hardware or something like that, but in a virtual machine, yeah, have fun with it.
I had my mic muted, but yeah, no, that's great. And talking about old Linux distros, that's another thing. I mean, I love to play with those in the VMs. And actually, it's funny. The video, I know which one you're talking about. Soon as I seen that video, I went and did the same thing in VirtualBox the same day. I'm like, I have to. So, because I wanted to see it because I never used that. I don't know if
that's still up or not, but I used to do stuff like that.
Those was fun videos.
Right now, I don't. The machine that I have that I'm using on a daily basis has 2 ancient Xeon processors in it. And they don't work with VirtualBox. And you can install, but everything is so grindingly slow that I just gave up on it. So I'm hoping somewhere down the road, like I used to do a lot of distro reviews and things like that, and play around with that sort of thing. Of course, then I got a job and I have no time for anything anymore. But somewhere down the road here, I'm going to have to upgrade that machine. And when I do, I'll probably start doing more of that and playing around with stuff more than I do now, you know?
Yeah, that would be good. I will say, like, your longer form videos are something I liked. I would get there and pull them up and then just sit there and listen to you talk while I was doing other stuff. I'd be eating or coding or eating and coding.
You don't know how many people for years have said, I just listened to your video. And
you're good radio, let me tell you.
well, I mean, that's the production level on my videos is so low that it better have something in there that people want to hear, because it's certainly nothing to see.
Yeah, I mean, your video's production value. I mean, I know in the past you've talked about it. That you don't.
I actually enjoy those kind of videos myself.
Yeah.
I like, because sometimes you get bored and you get lonely at the same time, and you're like, I would just like to if you could just give me the feeling of hanging out with somebody. I love that.
Yeah, it does feel like you're hanging out with somebody. It really
yeah,
does.
And if you can do that, that is so nice to be able to do that through YouTube. And there's some creators that are very good at it that make that happen, you know. And so it's like I used to I don't know if you remember, I did a video one time where I installed some operating system and played with it for an hour and a half and recorded the whole thing.
That sounds like a video I watched.
To post it.
That sounds like a video I watched. Maybe I'm dreaming that, but I would watch that kind of a video.
I mean, so many comments on that video, and people all the way, and it was virtual machine stuff. It was all the way down to the end. Anyway, but my YouTube channel is Joe Collins. That's all you got to do. If you want to go look at some really bad videos, we'll put a link in the show notes
so people can find it.
Knock yourself out. Have a good time.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes so everybody can find it. By the way, speaking of show notes, we actually have a website for the show now. I finally got around to getting that problem solved. If you've been going to opensourcetonight.com for 3 years now, you've gotten a coming soon page. Well, I finally decided we should actually show up.
Come on, dude.
I know. I just kept, being behind on it. But I finally buckled down the other day, and I'm like, this has been about 2 weeks, I guess now. I don't know. Something recently. And I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and just sat down. In like 3 days, I built the whole thing. So we have show notes on there. We have old episode archives. We have YouTube video clips. We have a blog where I might occasionally, or Joe might, or somebody else might post about Linux and be like, Linux is the best thing ever. But you didn't expect us to say it on Open Source Tonight because we've never talked about it. But we're going to say it right now. It's all available there at opensourcetonight.com, including the recording of this show, a little bit after we finish recording it. And again, we'll put that on the show notes. So actually, Joe's already, if you look at the older shows, you've actually already got your website listed on the show notes on some of them. So I went in like, we should put that in there. And I put his GitHub on the bash board as well, for example. So that's something you can go to if you're listening to us talk. This is a podcast. So if you're driving down the road, goodness sakes, please do not stop in the middle of the road and be like, let me just write that down. No, it's in the show notes, everybody. Just remember that one website, and you can, get everything else there. If we talk about it, I'll remember to put it in there. And, that way you will be able to very easily keep up with us. And I think it'll be very interesting. Another thing I've been experimenting with on the show notes, I don't know what you think about this, Joe, but if you check it out, I'd love your opinion. But I actually got code snippets in there for like when we're talking about terminal commands. Like, hey, if you want to use Nano, here's some information. Yeah.
Post all the code that you can so people will install it on their computers and break them.
I mean, yeah, so I don't know about breaking them. But
it does take a lot of... we in the Linux world, we are rather trusting if you stop and think about it, because you go and look up how to do something and somebody posts a block of code.
And you just copy, this is what you do. You just copy and paste it.
And don't even look. Half the time, it's like you look at it, you just glance through it, and you go, okay,
that seems all right, right? I've heard of those things before, most of them. It's probably fine.
It's probably fine. Let's throw this in there.
Security and obscurity. We don't need any of that. We'll be fine.
This is another reason for virtual machines. If you're cobbling code together from other places, maybe
test
you'd
it
like
in the
to run it
VM
in a
first
safe
and see if
environment.
it's doing something crazy, right? Or breaks things. I had a package one time that I installed a while back, and it broke the desktop. It was so stupid. It uninstalled. I don't know why they did this, but as soon as it installed, I was doing it from the terminal, and it was removing the GNOME desktop.
Yes.
And I thought, oh no.
Very weird. Yes. That's all. Yeah, that was the thing with Ubuntu. There was actually certain packages that you would install, and then you would go to uninstall it, and when it did, it would declare the desktop as
a dependency.
An unneeded dependency. And then all of a sudden, you're like uninstalling half of your operating system, and nothing works.
Yeah, that was really bad. I did that one time. I'll tell you 2 war stories here real quick, because these are both. It's always good to point out that I'm an idiot on the show. That's going to be good TV for everybody, or good radio, or whatever. But
and whatever he did, I bet I did it too.
I bet you did. If you did, I'd love to hear the story. But so I did 2 things. One time, RM. Do I even have to finish this story? Everyone probably already knows where this is going. So the RM command, for those who don't know, you can remove files on your Linux system. Well, I used the command, and I got in the habit of being RM star. Don't do that.
Oh, no.
I was trying to remove something that I needed root privileges for. So sudo space RM. And I'm really bad for sometimes building packages and putting them in /usr/local/bin and such, and working at the root level and stuff. Well, I was doing that, and I didn't realize I was doing that. That was in my home directory in a specific folder. I didn't need anything in. So I'm like, I'm just going to clear it out. I deleted like half the programs on the system instantly. But you're not going to believe this, but I actually made the system boot after that. Because here's what happened. I realized my mistake, and then I stopped it. It didn't delete everything. I managed to catch it. And then
Time shift.
And yeah,
Time shift is a great application. Learn how to use it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to learn how to use it.
Because if you do that, you can just roll right back.
Yeah, but
it saved my butt more than once.
Yep. So
not only have I done that, Vince, I've also managed to delete my entire home directory.
Yeah, I might have done that.
Like, you put the wrong thing in, or actually, I think it was something really stupid. It was an rsync command that I was sending over SSH, and I missed a directory level.
No.
So I replaced my entire home directory with like .thunderbird or something, like the hidden Thunderbird file. It's like, instead of having the entire home directory, it just became .thunderbird.
I've done things like that.
There was nothing in there. It was some command that I used with rsync, and it had the delete thing next, and yeah.
So it's funny because I don't usually use
restoring
rsync.
Backups.
It's funny, I don't usually use rsync to do that kind of stuff. I usually just use secure copy, but I've done that several times where I forgot. I'm supposed to be one more directory over. No, I messed up everything.
Well, I mean, the syntax is actually very similar, but as I've said before, I've written 2 backup programs, and I have a friend of mine who wrote another one as well, and in each one we used rsync. So I can dream rsync code. It's just like, I know how it works. And so I just type it in. I just go,
the way I use rsync is I either look at a script like yours or somebody else's that does what I want, or I literally just go and Google it, and again, copy and paste that code blindly from the blog post. But to finish the rest of my story before we get too far away from it, so I managed to get the system back because I realized what wasn't installed that was essential. So I just reinstalled it real quick with the apt command because that still worked. And I had luckily not messed that up.
How did you figure out what you'd uninstalled?
Well, thankfully, I was able to look and see what was missing. Because like I said, I was looking in that bin directory a lot, those bin directories and stuff. I was kind of a deep level user. So I was like, wait, hold on a minute. That program's missing. That program's missing. That program's missing. Oh, this is missing. I didn't get everything, but I got enough I could reboot the system, and it still rebooted. And I actually used that system for like another year, and then I'm like, I'm going to reinstall this thing because I'm sure it worked, but I'm sure there was something deep in there I've broken, and I didn't even know it. But it worked.
I was trying to troubleshoot a video problem on my son's machine a while back when with NVIDIA drivers. Gee, I wonder, why that would happen. Anyway, and I ended up breaking the machine and rolling it back to using time shift to roll it back. And I ended up doing it like 3 or 4 times. And but but I have gone through it and checked it, and I know it's okay. There's not anything wrong with it. It's just I've kind of in the back of my head said, well, I need to reinstall that thing, but everything's working, so I've left it alone. So hopefully it's okay.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, I would hope so. Maybe we should do a War Stories episode as a sidebar here, because I think we've got some pretty good ones. But yeah, I've done a bunch of different things. That's been like, why'd you do that?
I've got a couple of really scary ones. That's
okay, yeah, I bet you do. We'll have to talk about one of these, but at some point. But the other one that I'd like to tell here, and we'll probably end the show here in a minute because we're getting kind of long on time. But the one of the other stories I thought would be great to tell is one time I had a system.
At band camp.
Huh?
Nothing.
Okay.
Go on.
Anyway, but one time I had a system, and what I did with it was it was like, what do you do that for? So what I ended up doing was I was trying to really just be an idiot, basically. That's what I should have been saying I was trying to do anyway. But but anyway, what I was really trying to get to is I was trying to customize the system, as you do. And I broke something. I don't even remember at this point what the whole story was. What exactly I broke, but I just remember breaking the system really bad. But that's that I broke systems so many different ways. I mean, we could have a whole War Stories episode that's an hour long where I literally could by myself. I don't even have Joe on the show giving the other group of his stories to add to it. I could literally just talk about the ones where I RM stuff and broke things. That alone is probably an hour of programming if I really needed to fill it, because it's such a powerful command. But and then you got secure copy. Linux is great, but the thing about Linux, especially the terminal, when you have talked about this before in your Bash videos, which I picked up a few things on, even though I'm pretty good at Bash just from watching them. It's also good to be reminded of things when you forget it. But one of the things that I can definitely tell you is you were talking about in those videos how powerful Bash and just using a shell in general and Linux is, how you can really control the system to a deep level. And you need to be, especially with some commands, kind of careful, right? Because, I mean, you can wipe the whole system. One time, I actually built a VM because I wanted to just see how quick I could break a system. I wanted to intentionally, and that's a great use for a VM, by the way. If you want to just see how easy it is to break a system, you can try. And I wanted to just see how easy it was. So I'm like, let's see how quick I can remove the entire system's drive, right? Like erase everything, RM. So I did RM and, with sudo and did, /star and all this and to get to the root level of the system. Oh, that was such a quick reboot. It took a quick mess up. It took 3 or 4 seconds. The entire system was gone. Yep. And then it returned me to a prompt. Even though at that point, the only reason the prompt even worked at all is because it was in RAM, right?
It was all in RAM, and it was running, and it didn't know it was dead yet, and it was just sitting there.
Yep. And then I'm like, let's try the reboot command because that's not going to be in RAM. Sure enough, no such command. What? I don't know what that is.
Cannot stat current directory. If you see that one, you are screwed.
And yep, I also seen that. Cannot stat directory /home/Vincent
somehow or another. If you see that, cannot stat current directory, that means that you have somehow or another managed to delete the directory you are currently working in.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, you very much you're in bad shape. And then I rebooted the VM, and all I got was this. This is when your Linux system's in bad shape. ... That little blinking cursor by itself. That just little.
Yep.
I don't know what to do, Vince. I don't have anything to run here. I'm trying.
Ain't nothing to work, buddy.
I ain't got nothing to run
nothing here. I got nothing.
Yep. All right. Well, with that, maybe we should end the show.
But that's the magic of it. It's like I always, when I was working with people one-on-one, I'd set them up with Linux and go, "You're going to break this. Don't be afraid to break it. You know how to reinstall it. Have fun."
Yeah. Breaking a Linux system can be fun entertainment.
Linux, if you're really bored, all you have to do is sit down in front of a Linux machine and start, like you said, intentionally breaking things. It's fun.
For the
Yeah,
record,
every
don't do it
time-
to somebody else's machine that you're
No,
responsible
no,
for,
no,
or
no,
anything in
no,
production,
no.
of
Use
course.
Use your power for good.
Not evil, that's right, very much so. But set up a
Exactly.
VM. This is the perfect one to tinker with. Where I used to play with like Pulse Audio, the config file, and try to customize all this stuff. That's another great way to break stuff, by the way. If you want to do that, just open up Pulse Audio config at the root level and start changing stuff you don't know what it does. Before you know it, you won't have sound on that VM at all. It'll be the sound of silence if you get the irony.
With that crap, dude. I want it to work. I kind of like sitting. See, I'm kind of strange. I like to sit down and have my computer work. I'm not fooling
That's
with
not
it,
strange
man.
at all. That's exactly what I want. That's one of the reasons I like Linux, because
You
unless
know
you
what
do something
happens is-
stupid to it, it just keeps working.
No, for a long time, I didn't have an outside job, and so I would like on a whim change my distribution or swap hard drives around and reload the whole system just for fun. I used to do stuff like that, and then I went back to work, and when I did, that stopped. It was like, I need this thing to work every day. I can't be fooling with it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you get to a point. I mean, years ago, I was much more of a tinkerer. I think when you first enter Linux, you kind of go through this period of very, like, you want to just do everything to do it. But once you've done everything, then I think you get to the point, at least I did, where it's like, okay, I still like to tinker, but let's do it in a VM. So I do it on the actual system. And also another thing, too, is on the actual system, I don't want to change stuff. Like, if I'm going to change something, you got to really, it's a slow process. I will, very slowly do that. For example, this system's on 2004 because I like the way it works. It's still got support. I'll move later. My mom's system is the same way because, again, it works. And I don't break things that work, at least not intentionally. And one of the ways I do that is I stay on a known version of the software. And then, okay, about a month before that, the current LTS goes away, that's when I usually say, great, now we'll move to 2204. And when most people are already, ahead of us again, right? So, but that's the way I like to do it, It works. And
well, no, I know a lot of people that like to do that. I mean, I have this one guy I know that's still running 1804. He's a little nuts.
I got one system 1804 on it.
Well,
it's this ThinkPad right here. That's the only system I got with 1804.
Especially with the NVIDIA thing with the drivers going away for a lot of the older cards, man.
Oh, wait.
I'm hanging back on a lot of systems right now.
I just remembered something. I recently, a couple months ago, put 2004 on this. Never mind. But this was my last holdout.
Okay. So the 1804 is gone now. All right.
But yeah, I mean, I stayed on that for a long time. But, like 2004, I jumped to relatively quickly because I like the default theming. I got to tell you, for years, controversial opinion to leave the show with here before we go bye-byes, is the old theming on Ubuntu for a long time was ugly. That's Vincent's opinion. All right, anyway, and with that, I will get the hate comments.
You didn't like ambience?
I mean, for years I used it.
The only two that you got was ambience and radiance, and
didn't really care for either of that much.
PPA that I used to hook up to get themes to get away from that stuff.
Yeah, so you also was kind of the same way I was for a long time, I guess. You didn't like the themes.
But I've got to tell you, though, like you said, 2004, 2204, out of the box, it actually looks good.
It does. Like, thank you.
Yeah, I'm like, wow. 2204, I've got two machines right now, one that I'm on right now. I've never touched it. I don't care. It looks good. It's like, yep, I'm good with that.
Yeah, exactly. And, my stance is try to keep the system as close to stock as I can to do what I want. So if the theme isn't going to make me poke my eyes out and I think it's pretty, we'll leave it alone. And
but then again, with
the only thing I do is I'll set it to the dark version of the theme. That's the only thing I like to do because I've been using dark themes for so many years now that if I went to the bright themes, I'd burn my eyes out. What's weird though is on my Windows machine, I don't want a dark theme. I'm weird. I don't know what it is about Windows. I
actually stay away from dark themes.
Huh.
I used to love dark themes and then I stay away from them now mainly because I have to use Windows.
Is that why?
And like you said, I don't want a dark theme on Windows. I can't make it work anyway. So if I have it on one and not the other, then it's,
I wonder what it is about Windows and a dark theme that we don't like, because I don't really know. It might be a subconscious thing or something, but I do not care one bit for a dark theme on Windows. But anyway, regardless of that, yeah, I mean, the dark theme on Ubuntu looks pretty good if you want to check it out. The dark theme that's based on the GNOME one, like the regular GNOME one that it ships with on almost everything, that's pretty too these days, I have to say. I used to run that actually on my Ubuntu systems for a while. I would set that up with like GNOME tweaks.
Yeah, I remember
and use
that.
that.
I used to do that too.
Yeah. So, actually, that's where I got that from, for the record. Y'all may notice a trend here. Joe does it. I'm like, that's a good idea. Let's try that. So, like, half of my technology stack is, well, Joe Collins did it once.
I haven't posted a lot about Linux in the last couple of years, so you've just been lost and on your own, haven't you?
No, I mean, I've kind of, the last few years, I've kind of done stuff. I mean, I've always kind of done my own thing, but I have kind of used your videos as inspiration. If that makes sense. Thank you. But anyway, enough sucking up.
I want to go to bed now.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not sucking up. I really do like his videos. But anyway, we'll catch you all next time on Open Source Tonight. Joe Collins, where can they find you at online? Tell everybody, please.
Just go to Google and type in Joe Collins Linux, and I will pop up.
All right, and you're not
the first thing you'll see.
Yeah, and just to clarify, you're not Philip Collins. The singer guy.
No, that's cousin Phil. And
wait, you're cousins? We're going to talk about this after we get off the air. This is going to be good stuff.
We're all cousins. But no, that's been a running joke for years. Working on the radio, I play a Phil Collins record. I'd say, "Hey, it's cousin Phil," but he's better known for drums.
Yeah, technically you're right, but yeah, I call him a singer, but you're right. Technically, his drums is really good. But anyway, let's not get into a 2-hour tangent about that. But yeah, you can find me at vincentmagger.com. You can find me online on this little thing called GitHub if you want to check out the code I've worked on that's open source. I am the maintainer.
Don't bother, it's all trash.
That's not true. I am the maintainer of OB Player from Open Broadcaster. So if you want to see the thing I work on a lot of the time, you can check out that code base. It's written in Python. You can also check out opensourcetonight.com, our brand spanking new website. It's barely out of the website printer, still warm if you want to take the paper and hold it up to your face, if you ever like to do that. And until next, everybody, thank you so much for watching Open Source Tonight or listening. This has been episode 21. Catch y'all again very soon. Goodbye, everybody.